Good evening and welcome to Chasing the Facts. I'm Sam Chase, your host, and with us this evening is Chelmsford Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Jay Lang. How are you, Jay?
Yeah, I'm very good, thank
you.
Good,
and
we're
very happy to have you here. And I think you know the drill. You've been on the show before. We ask that you give just a very, very brief biographical sketch and anything you want to say, and then we'll get into the discussion. So
Sure. No, thank you again for having me. I'm very happy to be here tonight. We were commenting a little earlier, this is my 9th year here in Chelmsford as a superintendent.
Amazing.
Yeah, no, time flies. I remember coming on the first year and it was, year 1 or year 2, but it's actually starting year 9. I think we're in a really good place. I very much enjoy working here. Again, this has been my most recent past. Prior to that, I had worked in Lowell as the Deputy Superintendent of Finance and Operations for approximately 20 years. So I just come with those 2 districts' experiences. But again, very much enjoy here in Chelmsford. I think we're off to a very good start to the school year. Time flies. It's already coming up on Thanksgiving. It feels like the year just started, but we're already past our first quarter. We're into the second marking period already, and we're in good shape. Things are going pretty well.
Well, that's great, and I guess in politics, as in many other things, no news is good news. So if you're not hearing negative stuff,
yeah, to be honest with you,
you must be doing a good job.
Well, I appreciate that. No, this year has actually been, I was very busy. We had a lot of work we did last spring and summer with a couple of big projects in the district. But the school year really opened up very smoothly. Always, there's logistical issues we deal with at the beginning part of the year with some of the capital projects that were still being completed in some of the schools. We renovated the McCarthy kitchen this past summer. That kind of leaked into the start of the school year, so we had to deal with some logistical issues with feeding the kids at that school, producing the food off-site and bringing it in. But everyone was very cooperative. That project's kind of wrapping up right now as we speak. We had the realignment of our 2 middle schools. So this about a year and a half work of work over the course of this summer all came together. So now for the start of the school year, Parker Middle School services all students in Chelmsford in grades 5 and 6, and then all of our kids go over to McCarthy Middle School for grades 7 and 8. That was a very big undertaking. Again, went very smoothly right out of the gates. We had a lot of logistical challenges this summer with regard to just physically moving about half the staff from both buildings to their new home. There's a lot of work that's been taking place at the start of the school year with both staff and students to really build that new sense of community in the 2 buildings. But really, it's gone exceptionally well. I think the staff seem very happy with the transition. Parents seem very happy, and it's been a relatively quiet start to the school year, which is a good thing in schools.
And it is, and relative to the realignment that you just described, again, I have heard. I don't think I've heard any negative comments in the community, which kind of surprised me because I think that's a very drastic change. And I remember when the previous realignment came in that grouped the middle school all together, grades 5 through 8.
Right.
That was quite controversial when that happened, and
right.
Dire predictions, and of course the staff pulled it off very well. And
right.
You probably remember my wife was a 5th grade teacher in McCarthy at the time, and I remember she had concerns about the 5th graders being so close to the 8th graders, but they were able to work it out. So it's kind of funny. I guess somebody my age, you look back and you say, well, this is a more traditional alignment where you've got grades 7 and 8 segregated in their own school. So in my day, we would have called that junior high school, but I guess that term is no longer being used?
Yeah, you do see different districts call things, a little bit differently. When I went to middle school myself, it was grades 6, 7, 8, and that was considered junior high school. You do still have some districts that would call an upper middle school, junior high school. Some call it upper middle school. I actually really like how it worked out in the end. We were doing it also kind of with a longer term vision about the schools and some of our space issues to try to do this alignment now to get all of the kids in these grade levels together. Again, I think it's gone very well. It's very age appropriate. When you're in the Parker Middle School, your 5th and 6th grade students still kind of feel like upper elementary school students. And then as the kids are maturing a little bit and growing, 7th and 8th grade certainly more aligned to kind of getting ready for high school. So it's gone, again, very well. I think the student populations in both schools have handled this change exceptionally well. It was a lot of work for the staff in both schools as well. And everyone's always a little nervous because of change and all the different moves. But again, in the end, they handled it very well. Our custodians and the company we had doing some of the move over the summer were exceptional. We really got everything to where we said we would and help people get acclimated for the start of the school year. So I really couldn't be happier with, in the end, how it all came together.
That's
So it was
good.
about a year and a half's worth of work, but everyone really worked hard to make sure that it was as smooth as possible.
Did it affect any of the transportation routing for buses or anything? Was that a problem at all?
Not necessarily. What we ended up doing in the end was actually keeping all the middle school kids, grades 5 to 8, on the same buses,
Okay.
or on buses together. It would have been a little too difficult to have buses only serving grades 5 and 6, and then only serving grades 7 and 8, because right now we're doing town-wide loops to pick up the kids and to drop them home after school. So we would have had to have had buses do a complete town-wide run for both schools, and we just don't have that resource. So what we ended up doing is actually staggering the start and stop time of the two middle schools by about 10 minutes. So we have 29 buses that actually service the middle schools.
Wow.
So all 29 buses first arrive in the afternoon to McCarthy, and they pick up all the 7th and 8th grade kids. And those kids typically sit towards the back of the bus anyway. That's kind of a rite of passage. They move to the back. And then the buses travel over to Parker, and they pick up siblings or some of the younger kids at that school, and then they go and do a town-wide run. So that afforded us the ability to still use our 29 buses and be able to get to the elementary schools in time for those runs. So that worked out very well. But again, that was one of the two options we looked at. Parents also like that because if they do have children, brothers and sisters, siblings, in grades 5 to 8, there's one bus stop, pick up and drop off. They didn't have to go out to the bus stop, say, twice.
That's a good point.
Oftentimes you will have an older sibling, keep an eye or watch the younger sibling. So they're still on the buses together. At most, it's just 10-minute drop off and picking up at the other location. But that, again, was some feedback we would receive from parents. And logistically, it actually worked better for us than doing two separate runs. So that's going very well.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that because, as you said, I mean, that is a tremendous undertaking logistically and administratively and so forth. And
Right.
to have that go off as relatively smoothly as it did, I think is quite an achievement. Before we started the show, we talked a little bit about the fact that you'd been with us for 9 years. I still can't
Right.
believe it. My observation is that we don't pay much attention to that because things seem to be going relatively smoothly, and I attribute a lot of that to you and our current town manager, who seem to get along very, very well, very collaboratively, and we don't seem to have the dissension and the acrimony that we used to have many, many years ago before both of you fellows were here,
Right.
Fights over the budget and other things like that. So if you could take just a minute and kind of expand on that, describe the relationship you have with the town manager and how you guys work
Sure.
collaboratively, that would be great.
Yeah, no, Paul has a very good team that really support and work with him. I feel I do on the school side as well. I think there's mutual respect between myself and Paul. I think it goes both ways. I think we both realize that there's a pot of money that really needs to support the whole town, and it isn't kind of an us against them type thing. I know education is important to the town manager. That's one of his areas that he really focuses on. Obviously, it's also important to me. I have a respect also, though, for the other town departments and what they do to support our schools. So if it's DPW actually doing improvements to our buildings, our police and fire are phenomenal as far as supporting the schools and responses and things along those lines. So it really is, it needs to be a collaborative type effort. And I think we, from the very get-go, 9 years ago, I can't believe it's been that long,
It's amazing.
already, have just been very open and honest with each other. We don't always agree 100% on everything, as two people might not, but I think we agree to always hear each other out and work to try to find common ground and really solve problems. So I think the town has been very supportive of the schools as far as funding our budgets. I think I've been realistic in what I've asked and requested. I'll always kind of provide the backup. There's really no surprises. And that was one of the things I think we both said when we came on board. You know, I won't surprise you. You don't surprise me. I think you have to kind of have that mutual trust and respect. And again, in the end, we're really all working for Chelmsford to be the very best town it can be, and for us to offer the very best education that we can. And we both have that goal in mind. So I think that's been good to kind of help our relationship, and in the end, I think help the town.
And you're right, and we all benefit as a result of that. And it's quite obvious to anybody who's paying attention that the relationship is good, and we all have.
No, and not only with the town, but I think with our different department heads in our different areas that have to work closely. Our business office works very closely with the town accountant and town treasurer, and again, police, fire, everyone is kind of on the same page. So that's very nice to see.
Yeah, you mentioned the Department of Public Works, so I never really thought much about that, but with our new director, Christine Clancy, she seems to be very, very interested and proactive. And it seems like you've developed a good relationship with DPW, and they've been a good partner in helping you carry out a lot of your projects.
They very much have. I mean, right when I got here, Gary Persichetti had been the DPW director, and he was very involved in the schools. He had previously worked in the schools,
Correct.
So I think he really, again, appreciated where we were at or where we were coming from. Welcomed Christine on board. She's been on board, I think, just about a year maybe at this point.
About 19 or 20 months, I think.
Oh, is it even over a year?
It's almost like the 9 years with you.
It's flying by.
Flies by.
Flying
Right.
by. But no, she's got a great wealth of knowledge she brings to the table. She also understands just the buildings themselves, the school buildings, and what the needs are to keep them going. We meet actually for this Friday. We have our meeting. We meet monthly with myself, Brian Curley, who's our facilities director, Christine, Matt, the facilities manager, and then Paul Cohen, meet to just kind of talk about the state of affairs in the town, all the town buildings.
Great.
I obviously look specifically for schools, but we bring everything to the table and talk about what we're actually dealing with. And again, I think it's good to just get together and make sure everyone's on the same page. So that's been another good relationship.
Well, that's good to hear. Now, you and I both recently attended a planning board meeting where they were attempting to do some community outreach. They had FinCom there, you were there, some other representatives were there. And they were talking about their vision for trying to accommodate the state requirement for the MBTA zoning.
Correct.
And I have to say, just a little plug for the planning board, I thought that meeting went very, very well. And I was very happy to see the unity of purpose among the members. Not that you always want them agreeing on everything. That's not good either. You have to have some interplay there. But on this particular issue, they all seem to be on the same page. But one thing that I don't know why I really wasn't thinking about it or aware of it, but when you spoke, you talked about the facilities and your facilities and the enrollment and the fact that you were pretty much out of space.
Right.
And I guess I hadn't been paying attention, and the thing that really shocked me was the number of students that you have at Byam.
Right.
Now, I have two grandchildren at Byam, so of course I'm a little bit focused on that. But did you say 508 students? Was that the number I heard?
A little over 500 students right now at Byam. I think if I can step back for a second, just in general terms, we definitely are going to be witnessing a little bit of an enrollment increase over the next 5 to 10 years. We've been starting to see this.
Is that starting with the lowest grades and building up?
So historically, if you've looked over the last 5 years at our DESE data around our October 1st account, the number has been pretty consistent. But behind the scenes, what's been happening, we actually had a little bit of an enrollment decline at the high school level, but we've actually been having an enrollment increase at the elementary level. So those kids have been coming in, but you really haven't seen it if you were just looking. We've always been like right around 5,000 students in the district. So if you saw that 5,000 would be pretty consistent. But what we've been seeing is, again, the high school going down, elementary going up. Well, that's now at the point where our elementary kids are now kind of, that bubble is hitting middle school, and it's going to be getting to high school. So you're actually going to start seeing that 5,000 number start to tick up by about 300 or 400 students over the next 6 or 7 years. So
that's a lot.
We actually increased 75 students just this past year.
Wow.
So October 1, 2022 to 23, we're up 75 kids. Now, again, it's spread throughout the district, but we certainly have some enrollment issues, and I had just wanted to flag that for the group. so that we know that's a challenge for us going forward. Our elementary schools in particular are almost at capacity again, and that's after we added the modular
modulars,
classrooms back in 2017. We added 22 additional classrooms. Now, it was half to be able to provide full-day kindergarten because we had really wanted to do that. We needed some extra classrooms for that. But we also knew we needed a little bit of enrollment kind of wiggle room in our schools. But we talked about Byam a second ago. All of our elementary schools were designed to basically house 4 classrooms at each grade level. So we call them like a 4-strand school. So you would have 4 kindergartens, 4 first grades, 4 second grades. And we have a little bit of wiggle room in the schools where if we have a bubble, because we do enroll based on geography. So if you live in the Byam district, you're going to go to Byam. You don't necessarily, if the school is full, say go to Center or South Row or something like that. So we have a little bit of room in the buildings to be able to add, we call them a bubble class, like a 5th section of a grade level. And that happens from time to time through the district. But we're actually at the point right now where Byam has 5 sections of everything in the building.
Wow.
So they have a bubble classroom at each grade level. So they're really operating as a 5-strand school. So they have 5 kindergartens, 5 first grades, 5 second grades. So that ends up adding about 125 students to the building. Now again, we can house them because we did do those modular classrooms, but we just really don't have any further room for growth because we do try to keep our elementary enrollments at the K1, 2 grade levels. We'd love them to be 18 to 22 as a range, and then when you hit 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade, 22 to 24 is kind of the target for us. I'd love them to be on the lower end, but in some of these schools, again, where we already have, say, that 5th bubble section, sometimes you are creeping up to 23, 24, potentially even 25 students. And I really wouldn't want to get an elementary classroom higher than that. For learning and whatnot to support the students as best we can. So I had mentioned that at the group just because we know that eventually the development at West Campus is going to come on board, and that's something that we hadn't really built out, but we knew it was coming. And
That's 400 units of housing.
400 units. I do think it's going to be a lot of 1- and 2-bedroom. And it is going to be, in my opinion, it appears to be kind of relatively high-priced, condos. So you're not going to see a significant number of students coming from that. I think you're going to see more kind of younger, maybe business professionals or whatnot, because the geography is obviously excellent, where it's near Route 3 and 495
Exactly.
and whatnot. And those particular students will likely attend at elementary level Harrington. Again, I don't have a lot of extra room there, but certainly a little bit more capacity than we have at Byam. I know one of the areas that the planning board was looking at was some additional, say, housing out near Littleton Road, kind of.
In the quarry area, right.
Correct,
yeah.
which would actually feed to Byam. So if that ever really developed, that would be difficult for us. Our second school that I'm probably most concerned with enrollment-wise beyond Byam is Center. Center Elementary School really is starting to build out. And we only added 4 modular classrooms at Center because of the geography of the area. We didn't have the room to build 6. So they actually are down 2 classrooms, which really allows them to have 2 less kind of bubble sections in their building. And, oftentimes they will, if we do have any, say, homeless students that are housed at the hotel over on 110 behind Moonstones, that would be the school that they're districted to. So that is a concern for us as we talk about some homelessness and potentially even some migrant families and things along those lines. That Center may kind of bear the brunt of some of those students. We want to best support them that we can when they come. It's just a space issue for us. So again, I was kind of just flagging that as just things we have to look at in the long term. The other thing is we do have an aging building stock. Our newest building is the high school, which is 73, 74 when it came online. Prior to that, all of our elementary schools and middle schools are largely from the 50s, going into the early 60s. So our building plants, certainly need a refresh and a renew.
You can almost tell that because that they were all built within a 5 or 6 year span because the architecture is all the same.
Right. Well, say Byam and Harrington are basically sister schools.
Exactly.
They have the same layout.
Right.
They were just dropped on a different plot of land. Center is the only one that's a little bit different
Right.
design-wise. But no, so that's something we're going to have to invest in facilities going forward. And if we kind of piggyback to the whole realignment of the middle schools. That was partly to kind of get us ready for potentially a new school building project in town, and taking a look at the fact that we are going to need some extra capacity at the elementary level in the years to come. One of our applications we submitted to the state for consideration for a potential new school building would be to replace Parker Middle School, which is now grades 5, 6. Ideally, one of the things we'd like to look at is if we were to build a new middle school, potentially building a new grade 4, 5, 6. And if we did that and it was one new facility, we'd be able to have the 4th grade come out of the elementary schools, and grades 4, 5, 6 are still very developmentally appropriate, age-wise, and even the curriculum that we use is very much tailored to that particular grade level. That potentially could be a one school kind of fix for us to help us over the next 10 to 20 years. Space-wise. So that was one of the concepts we wanted to do. We wanted to first kind of figure out how would the town feel if we went from having 2 standalone 5 to 8 schools to a 5, 6, 7, 8. And again, they were very supportive. So we spent about a year and a half to kind of get to that point, so that if we are invited into looking at a potential new school building in town, we wouldn't then have to kind of tackle the whole, is the town going to support this? How do we feel about this concept? We went ahead and actually already did the realignment, so that Parker now is 5, 6. And again, that would be a project that I would like to have some community discussion and input around, because I think by building, say, one new grade 4, 5, 6 school, that would actually solve, obviously, the need for a new Parker, but at the same time, it would be helping with the elementary. Elementary capacity issue.
Oh, that's a very interesting concept, and it occurs to me that, again, you're always thinking and you're looking forward. Now, as far as the applications go to the state for assistance funding and so often, how does that work? Do you have to resubmit every year? Or maybe you could take a minute and explain.
Yeah, it's a process, and I think if we were to build a new school, obviously the town would need some state support to do that. So the Massachusetts School Building Authority would be the group to potentially partner with the town to build a new school. They have an application round annually at this point. So we applied last April for consideration of a Parker School project, and that application went in. The MSBA does what they consider their due diligence to take a look at all applications that got submitted, and then they go out to schools that they haven't seen before. They were on site a year ago to see Parker, so they didn't have to come back to us. They had already done that work. And then we're anticipating mid-December is when the MSBA would actually decide whether they're going to invite schools in this year or not, based on the number of applications, the needs of the schools. It's all based on the severity of the schools and the conditions on an annual basis. So we're hoping in December to maybe get the invite to look at a potential Parker Middle School project. If we don't, then the application process starts all over again. So in January, the application would come out. We'd have to apply April of '24 for consideration. And each year, it's a fresh start. So they take a look at any project that happens to get submitted that year. So someone may not have submitted the year before that has a more compelling argument than you. Someone may not, but it's kind of a clean slate. You start all over again. But we're hopeful that maybe this December we'll get the invite and be able to start a process to take a look at, what would make sense for Parker? Would a potential grade level realignment, again, to maybe include some of the elementaries, make sense? Maybe it wouldn't in the end. We have to be open and take a look with the state on this, because once we do kind of figure out what type of project we'd like to move forward with, and they're going to participate with us on the funding of that, the state would pay, in Chelmsford terms, about 50% of the cost. So we'd get about a 50% reimbursement for our school. The reimbursement rate varies based on town and cities and their ability to pay and their conditions. But Chelmsford would receive about a 50% reimbursement.
That's pretty good. And I know years ago when we were having discussions, maybe 20 years ago now, about the condition of the buildings and the fact that we needed to replace, I think at the time they were talking about replacing McCarthy, that kind of thing. And in doing the analysis, people were looking at it and saying, it appears to us that those districts that deliberately decide to defer maintenance or not do it at all they're actually benefiting from the reimbursement program because, of course, if you don't do the maintenance, the schools fall into disrepair.
Right.
You have non-functional systems and everything. The state's going to say, well, wait a minute, those people have a greater need. So I hope we're not in a position of, no good deed goes unpunished type thing.
Right.
So because I know in Chelmsford we have a very good capital program, and we try to stay ahead of the maintenance. As you say, we have aging buildings, so of course it's even more critical that you pay attention to that. So how do you feel about, do you feel that the fact that we are responsible stewards of our buildings, do you think that hurts us at all in the reimbursement process?
It doesn't hurt you. It doesn't affect your reimbursement. What it would affect is whether you potentially get in on a particular year or not. And again, it is based on the buildings that get submitted for that particular year. And there are some communities, I think age of the facility is probably foremost. We had actually submitted, because originally we thought maybe a high school project, this is a couple of years back, might be the way to go. And we'd submitted 4 years in a row for high school consideration. And when the MSBA came out and they looked at the high school, they said, we get it, that could solve a lot of your needs in town, but the high school is actually, was built in the early 70s. We have other high schools, because high school is the most expensive school you can build. We have other high schools in the state that have submitted that are 100 years old. So,
Whoops.
It's just, there's no comparison there. And you've done a very good job of updating and maintaining your high school. And the high school is in very good shape and still offers excellent programs. So yes, there's a little bit of that. I think when it comes to Parker, and that's why we kind of said, maybe we need to change this up, because we don't want to keep submitting for high school and not getting it. Let's take a look at the middle schools. We think we can make a very compelling argument based on just Parker. The age is about 15 years older. It has a little bit of a funky layout within the building. It's not, you wouldn't build a building like that today just to be conducive, like education-wise. And I think we have a very good shot, and I really do. I'm hoping that we get invited in to be able to have that discussion with the MSBA. I also don't believe, just personally, you can let a building fall apart to just eventually be able to get a new space. It's a disservice to the kids and the staff that are currently in that facility. So I'd much rather have it take a year or two to get into the process. It's not going to stop us from getting there, but have it take a year or two and still provide a quality education for the kids we have. You're only going to be in that school for 1 or 2 years, in the case of Parker. I'm not going to let it fall apart to just make a more compelling application to the state for a new school.
Well, that's very good to hear, and I'm going to give you the credit because I don't know where else to direct it. But since your tenure, I have to say I'm in and out of the school buildings, and certainly this one, Parker, a lot because we tape here. But the overall condition and the cleanliness of the buildings in the last 6 or 7 years is so much better than it was 15 or 20 years ago. So you obviously are paying attention to that, and it's a morale booster.
Right.
If nothing else. I mean, nobody wants to come into a grungy, dirty old building for 6 or 7 hours a day. Right.
No, that's something that I think we've taken very seriously. We kind of have a hybrid model of how we clean and maintain the buildings. Our custodians that work for us during the day are phenomenal. I mean, they go above and beyond to really cater to the kids and the staff needs within the buildings. We have contracted cleaners that come in tonight to kind of do the deeper clean of the spaces when the kids and staff are gone. That model has worked well for us. DPW also, again, does a very nice job of maintaining the infrastructure of the buildings and the systems in the buildings. But it is something that's first and foremost in our priorities. We want to make sure that we have a good, workable, clean space for the staff and students to be learning in each day.
Yeah, and it's great that the focus in the last couple of years has been on the maintenance of support systems like HVAC and things like that. You have to have heat and you have to have clean air. So
well, we're very fortunate that the town actually received ARPA funding.
Yes.
Because and again, the capital list is growing longer and longer with projects, but the ARPA funding, a lot of it was tailored to HVAC systems. We were able to actually address many more HVAC needs through that ARPA funding than we would have been able to if we just relied on the town funding. Or even any type of bonded funding.
And that certainly, people can agree or disagree about the ARPA mechanism in total, but that clearly is disease and COVID related, the quality of your air. So there shouldn't have been any discussion about that. Jay, we've got about 40 seconds. Anything you want to say? Anything you want to say in the last 40 seconds?
No, nothing off the top of my head. I thank you for having me. I think again the school year is off to a great start. We're always looking to provide a very good, education for the students in Chelmsford. Can't appreciate and thank the staff enough for going above and beyond for what they do. And no, thank you for having me, and we're looking forward to having a solid finish to the school year.
Absolutely, and it'll be over before we know it,
Right.
and pretty soon the parents will be wondering what they're going to do with the kids the summer vacation. So, again, thanks for coming, and we'll have you back real soon.
Thank you for having me.
That's a wrap.